In 2007, a home security camera in Fresno, California, recorded something crossing a front yard at night. It moved on two legs. It was roughly 4 feet tall. It had no visible arms, no visible torso, and no face. The footage was analyzed by experts and has never been explained. Knows a flat, working-class city in California's Central Valley. Farmland bleeds into suburbs at its edges. In the summer of 2007, a homeowner in a quiet residential neighborhood had been noticing things out of place at night. A gate left open. The dog refusing to go outside after dark. A neighbor mentioning he had seen something moving in the street that he could not quite describe. The homeowner installed a basic home security camera aimed at his front yard. It was the kind of setup thousands of people had in those years. A fixed wide-angle lens, black and white night vision, recording to a VHS tape that you would check in the morning. He was expecting to catch a prowler, or maybe a loose dog. He was not expecting what he actually got. When he reviewed the tape the following morning, the yard was empty for most of the night. And then, at a point late in the recording, two figures entered the frame from the left side. They had legs, long, thin, slightly wide, set legs that bent and flexed with each step in a slow, unhurried, gliding motion. But above the legs there was almost nothing. A tiny, faintly rounded pale shape that might have been a small head, and below it the barest suggestion of a narrow body that tapered almost to nothing. No arms. No shoulders. No torso to speak of, just legs and the faintest hint of a head, walking calmly across the yard. The homeowner brought the tape to local investigators and then to paranormal researchers. In 2010, the footage was featured on the television program Fact, or Faked Paranormal Files. A team of effects professionals, camera technicians, and investigators attempted to reproduce the footage using puppets, stilts, costumes, and CGI compositing. None of their reproductions moved the same way. None of them matched the fluid, unhurried, almost plant-like sway of whatever was in the original tape. But here is what most people do not know. The 2007 Fresno footage was not the first time something like this had been reported in California's Central Valley. And it would not be the last. Accounts of the Nightcrawlers, as they came to be called, reach back further into local history than most people realize. Yokuts people, the indigenous tribe native to the San Joaquin Valley, the very region where Fresno sits, have oral traditions that describe a being of exactly this description. A creature that is almost entirely leg. A being so ancient it predates human memory. A creature that does not harm but simply walks. Always walking. Moving through the land at night unhurried, as if on an errand that has no beginning and no end. Anthropologists studying Yokuts' oral history documented references to these beings as far back as the 1920s. The beings in those accounts were described as very tall, very thin, on legs with no upper body. They were not considered evil. They were considered old. Far older than people. Something that had been here before, and would be here after. That detail, they were not considered evil, is somehow more unsettling than if they were. Because it means these things were simply accepted. A feature of the landscape, like a river or a hill, something that had always been there. Walking its circuit across the valley floor in the dark, night after night, for longer than anyone can remember. In 2010, the same year the original footage aired on national television, a second piece of footage emerged. This one was recorded in Yosemite National Park. It came from a Park Service trail camera, the kind set up to monitor wildlife movement along remote paths. The camera was motion triggered. Something triggered it. The Yosemite footage showed the same type of entity, same body shape, or rather same near absence of body. Long pale legs wide set with the same slow gliding motion. A tiny pale rounded form at the top. No face visible. Moving through a forested trail alone at night in a wilderness area miles from the nearest road. Biologists who reviewed the Yosemite footage ruled out every known animal native to that region. Bear walking upright, deer on hind legs, large birds. None of them move the way this moves. None of them have that shape. A zoologist who reviewed the footage for a documentary stated flatly that the gait was unlike any quadruped or biped in the known animal kingdom. Two separate pieces of footage, two separate locations. One a suburban yard in Fresno, one a remote mountain trail in Yosemite. The same body shape, the same gait, the same absence of arms and torso, the same unhurried pace, as if whatever this is has nowhere to rush to and nothing to fear. People who study these cases point to one detail that they find most difficult to dismiss. In both pieces of footage, The being moves through its environment without any apparent awareness of the camera. It does not look at the lens. It does not flinch at the night vision infrared light. It does not alter its pace or direction. It simply passes through as if the camera does not exist, as if the people watching do not exist, as if it exists in a slightly different layer of the world than we do. In the years following the 2010 broadcast, reports began coming in from across the Central Valley and beyond. A truck driver on Highway 99, the long, flat interstate that cuts through the heart of the San Joaquin Valley, reported seeing two pale figures crossing the road in his headlights at 3 in the morning. He braked. They crossed without hurrying. He described them as having no upper body worth mentioning, just legs. Just those long, spindly, wide-set legs. A farmhand working an irrigation shift near Tulare, a town roughly 50 miles south of Fresno. 2012 that he had seen something crossing a field at the field's far edge in the pre-dawn dark. He thought it was a tall man at first. Then he realized there were no shoulders, no arms swinging, just legs. He watched it cross the full width of the field and disappear into an irrigation ditch. He did not go to investigate. He went home and did not come back for 3 days. What is notable about every single one of these reports, from the Yokut's oral histories to the truck driver on 99 to the farmhand near Tulare, is the same detail that anchors the two pieces of footage. The Nightcrawlers never stop. They never interact. They never approach a witness deliberately. They walk. That is the whole of what they do. They walk, and they have been walking, through this valley, through this landscape, for a very long time. Skeptics have proposed a range of explanations. The most common is a person in a costume, specifically stilts with fabric draped over them to create the leggy silhouette. This theory has been tested by multiple production teams. The problem is the gait. A person on stilts moves with visible effort. There is a mechanical stiffness to the stride. The thing in the Fresno footage moves with what researchers describe as a fluid, almost botanical sway, like a tall plant bending in a slow wind, but walking. Stilt performers simply do not move like that. Common theory is CGI or digital manipulation. Investigators who analyzed the original VHS tape noted that the footage shows the expected analog artifacts of a genuine VHS recording: scan lines, compression noise, specific tape degradation patterns, at the correct points in the image, including in the regions where the figures appear. Digitally inserting a figure into VHS footage while replicating those artifacts accurately is significantly harder than it sounds, and would have required either professional level skill or access to the original camera and recording setup. The third theory, the one that follows people who look into this long enough, is the one the Yokuts already had. That these things are simply here. That they have been here. That the San Joaquin Valley, flat and vast and ancient, is something they move through in the dark the way water moves through a valley. Because it is the path they have always taken. Because this is where they have always been. In 2014, a man named Joe's, a construction worker living on the southeastern edge of Fresno, posted to an early paranormal discussion forum. He did not use his last name. He said he had not told anyone this because he was afraid of being laughed at. He said that one night in 2011 he had woken up at roughly 2 in the morning to a sound he described as a very slow, rhythmic knocking on his back fence. He had gone to the back window. The porch light was on and it lit the near part of the yard. He said he watched something come over the top of the fence, came over the way a person would lift a leg to step over a low gate, except the leg came up nearly to the top of a 6-foot fence. Then the second leg followed, and whatever it was stood in his backyard for a moment, both legs planted, and appeared to look at nothing in particular, and then walked to his side gate, lifted the latch from the inside with what he described as a sound like a finger tapping metal, and walked out. He said the most frightening thing was not the shape of it. He had grown up in the valley. He had heard stories. What frightened him was the sound it made when it walked across his yard. He said it made no sound at all. A 6-foot-plus figure crossing a dry concrete yard in the dead of a quiet night, and he heard nothing. No footstep. No click of a claw or nail. Just the tick of the gate latch, and then silence. And then it was gone. Joe's post received hundreds of replies. A significant number of them, not a handful, hundreds, were from other Central Valley residents saying variations of the same thing. That they had seen something similar. That they had not said anything. That they had grown up being told by older family members not to go looking when you heard something moving outside at night in the valley. Because some things out here just walk, and you do not want them to notice you noticing them. You do not want them to notice you noticing them. That line stayed with researchers who collected these accounts, because it implies something that neither the skeptics nor the believers had quite articulated. That there is something like awareness behind those walks. That whatever these things are, they have a preference about being seen, and that under most circumstances, they prefer not to be. Most circumstances. In 2021, a woman driving on a rural road south of Fresno near the town of Selma posted a short video to a local Facebook group. She had pulled over because she thought she had seen something at the side of the road in her headlights. She got out to film with her phone. The footage lasts 12 seconds. In the first few seconds it shows nothing but the dark roadside and the pale beam of her headlights cutting across dry grass. At the far right edge of the headlight beam, something moves in the grass. Something pale. Something that rises up from the crouching position the grass had hidden it in, and for 3 full seconds stands upright, 2 pale, wide-set spindly legs, a tiny pale rounded form at the top, before stepping slowly backward into the dark and disappearing. She drove away. She did not stop again until she reached a gas station 4 miles down the road. The Facebook post was shared over 4,000 times in 48 hours before it was deleted. Local news did not cover it. Nobody identified the woman. The video was saved and reposted dozens of times across Reddit and YouTube, where it has been analyzed frame by frame. Analysts have not been able to identify the figure. It does not move like a person standing up. It moves too slowly. It moves with the same fluid, unhurried absence of effort that the Fresno and Yosemite footage show. There is a question that runs through all of these accounts that nobody has answered cleanly. If these things have been here this long, documented in Yokut's oral tradition, on VHS in 2007, on a trail camera in Yosemite, on a phone on a rural road in 2021, then how many of them are there? The footage always shows 2. The truck driver on Highway 99 saw 2. The original homeowner in Fresno had 2 cross his yard. Always 2. Paranormal researchers who have studied the Nightcrawler cases extensively note that the pairing is one of the most consistent details across every documented account. They are always in pairs. Never alone, never in a group of 3 or more, just 2. Walking together at the same pace, in the same direction, with the same complete indifference to the world around them. Some researchers have drawn attention to the route. When you plot the locations where the Nightcrawlers have been reported, Fresno, Yosemite, Tulare, Selma, Highway 99, and you draw a line through them, they trace roughly north to south along the San Joaquin Valley floor. The same route that water follows in this valley. The same route that people and animals have traveled through this landscape for thousands of years. As if whatever these things are, they follow an ancient path. A path that was here long before the highway was laid over it. A Yokut's elder who was interviewed for a documentary in 2016, and who asked not to be named, said something that the interviewer did not include in the final cut, but recorded in their notes. She said that her grandmother had told her that the walking ones do not mean harm. They are doing what they have always done. The valley is their road as much as it is ours, maybe more. The valley is their road as much as ours, maybe more. That phrase sits differently when you consider how long the San Joaquin Valley has been inhabited, how much of its history has simply been walked over, forgotten, built upon. The Yokuts have lived in this valley for at least 10,000 years. Whatever they say has been walking it in the dark. They did not need a security camera to know about it. The original 2007 Fresno footage remains unresolved. It has not been debunked. No one has produced a credible recreation. No one has come forward to claim responsibility for a hoax which, almost 20 years, becomes its own kind of answer, or its own kind of question. The tape exists. The figures are on it. Whatever they are, they crossed that yard, and they kept walking. If you live in the Central Valley, if you live anywhere between Stockton and Bakersfield, along that long flat corridor of farmland and highway and irrigation canal, then statistically, some point in your life you have been asleep in a house that one of these things walked past. In the dark, on its road, making no sound at all. The Nightcrawlers have never been caught. They have never been cornered, never been photographed clearly, never been studied up close. Every piece of evidence we have of them is a thing that caught them passing through, briefly and at a distance, on their way somewhere else. They do not appear to live anywhere. They do not appear to feed, or rest, or shelter. They walk. That is all we know. That is all we have ever known. And somewhere out there tonight, on a flat dark road through a Central Valley field, in the pre-dawn quiet when the irrigation pumps have gone silent and there is no traffic on the highway, they are still walking.